Welcome to the second Sinner sermon. Now I have to be honest, I wasn't entirely happy with the first video, but because I felt it still had some good points, I left it posted. The problem I had was that it felt a little like a book report, and less like a conversation. Now this video will probably contain a lot less Bible verses, only because I don't want this to feel like a class. I want this to be an interactive conversation with believers and non-believers. I mean, from my experience, many non-believers are as angry about things in Christianity that many Christians themselves are angry about. Look, Christians are not perfect, and the sooner we all understand that, the better off we're going to be. So this brings me to why I don't show myself on these videos. Am I ashamed of my beliefs? Not at all. Am I a coward when it comes to how people might judge me? Absolutely. Now, I'm just being honest, but it seems to me that anytime someone tries to share something about God or Jesus, they are immediately scrutinized. Now, yes, you should always discern who is preaching to you or witnessing to you and what their motives and message are, but people seem to think that preachers or Christians are going to be perfect. Well, I'm sorry, but we aren't, and to be honest, that's probably why most of us are believers to begin with. So, my topic for this video is the idea of why Christians sin after becoming a Christian. Now, I grew up in the church, and as a child, I was constantly going to the altar. I felt like if I had done something to lose my salvation, I had to go up and get it again. So almost every Sunday I was at that altar. And this idea haunted me for a long time until I had done something, in my opinion, that had been so bad that even if I hadn't lost my salvation before this, surely after this particular evil deed, my salvation was gone for good. And it was this line of thinking that led to a dangerous and unfortunate few years of even more rebellious behavior and just feeling hopeless. I almost felt carnal at some point. Now, eventually I hit rock bottom, and I cried out for God to save me from what I had done with my life, and slowly I was able to pick up some of the pieces. I had realized that I was spending a huge amount of energy trying to feed my sin. I started to wonder what would happen if I could somehow transfer that energy into something more productive. And after a while, I decided that even though I was a hopeless sinner and I felt like I was bound for an eternal hell, that I should at least try and read the Bible myself. No longer as a kid, and no longer through the filter of a denomination, or just taking what people had told me. This is when I began a wonderful journey of discovering who God really is. Now, at some other point in time, I will go further into my personal story, but for the sake of time and cohesiveness, I'll try to stay on topic. Now, I can say honestly that after my spiritual experience, my behavior did change greatly over time. But what I can't say to you is that it changed completely. Unfortunately, I still sin. I backslide a lot, and it starts to bring up those childhood feelings again of losing my salvation. And I think this comes from the idea or the assumption that once you're saved and believed in God, that you live a godly life. But what does that really mean? I mean, does that mean you don't sin? Well, the Apostle Paul himself, who wrote 2/3 of the New Testament, seemed to struggle with sin himself. I mean, he mentions in Romans, and I'm paraphrasing, that he chooses to do good but ends up doing what he hates, and this is well after his conversion. So, if you're a Christian and you're out there and you feel bad because you're still sinning, at least you know you're in good company, because Paul felt the same way. So what happens when you become a Christian if you don't completely stop sinning? Well, and this is my opinion only, but it's based on my understanding of the Bible, but I believe that being a Christian is more than just trying to become perfect. It's about building a relationship with your Father, the Father that longs to hear your voice, and yet you never call, or you call very rarely, or you call only when you need something. I mean, this relationship is the key to Christianity. You start to realize, once this relationship is going well and you open up, that God doesn't require perfection. He only requires honesty. Honesty with Him and ourselves about our shortcomings and our weaknesses. Now, we have to be honest about our pasts and our presents, and it's through this process of opening up, confessing, and building a friendship that we'll start to see our behavior change. And even though you may not become a perfect person on this earth, you will undoubtedly become a better person. This is what God wants. It's the same way your parents want you to become a good person. They certainly don't expect you to be perfect. They don't expect you not to make mistakes, but they do want you to try. They want you to take their lessons to heart and to use their guidance to do your best. Humans will never be perfect in an imperfect world. It's just not going to happen. The only one strong enough to do that was God. This is why Jesus came to begin with, because we couldn't do it on our own. God entered an imperfect world and took the punishment we all deserve. He saved us, so surely we don't and can't save ourselves. We shouldn't be obedient to get God to respond to us or to give us salvation, but we should be obedient in response to what God has already done for us. Make the effort, and I believe God will show you glimpses of not only how life in humans should have been before sin, but how life in humans will once again be when God reconciles his family in that complete way that we all long for. Now, I want to thank you so much for listening, and please, as always, feel free to post comments, verses, questions. I only ask that whether you're a believer or not, please be respectful and avoid hateful words.